Hi everyone and welcome back. I'm Tschinkel, Chief Technology Officer at Ayni Gold. As always, for everyone who is new here, Ayni Gold is a platform that connects real-world gold mining to on-chain finance. We tokenize exposure to gold production, and we're building the rails so that people can access gold-linked value and rewards in a transparent way directly from our app. In our today's video, we will be discussing the video recap for January. So we'll start by setting the macro context and looking at what moved the markets, and then we'll walk through what this actually means for Ayni and how we're going to be building through it. So let's start with what happened actually in January. The big picture, January was kind of a risk is fragile month, I would say. We can see that in January, the markets opened and tried to stay optimistic, but we could clearly see volatility several times. So the pattern was clear. Gold behaved like a world's stress barometer, I would say. And Bitcoin behaved like a high beta asset that needs constant liquidity and positive sentiment to keep running. And the dollar plus rate expectations acted kind of like the steering wheel actually for both, you can say in a manner. So by the end of the month, the narrative that dominated was uncertainty is still the baseline, and positioning matters more than the conviction. So the gold in January 26 had a vertical run with quite some turbulence. We can look a bit now a bit more granularly. So we had an explosive month, I could say. In late of January, the gold spot had passed $5,400 and even touched $5,500. Which was roughly a 24% in January raise at this point. So the main question after this explosive moves is what actually drove it? And I would say that we can distinguish four main drivers behind this move. The first driver, I would say, is geopolitics and the trust premium. First, in the geopolitics, we can see that it doesn't look like it's just the short-term trading. A lot of people are actually buying gold because the world feels less predictable, and when uncertainty goes up and gold often gets this trust premium, then we can see it reflecting in the price. So on the other hand, central banks, I would say, was the second catalyst. So they have been quite the steady buyer, as we even mentioned last month, and even with the high prices, they keep adding to the balance sheet. And I believe that this matters because it creates a strong base for demand underneath the market. As a third point is always the retail investors, which I think they have come back big in a way, and also through the sentiment. So the investment demand picked up again by retail investors, and more money flowed into gold, including through ETFs, I would say. So there's also an importance because it shows that it wasn't only just fear buying for 1 or 2 days, but it was a real shift on how investors are actually allocating now. And as a last point, I would say that the rates with the Fed, they're still part and play a role in the story. So the Fed held the rates quite steady, and the markets kept watching what comes actually next. So gold reacts a lot to the direction of rates and of course the dollar. So even when it's not in the headlines, it still has an impact on market moves. And then obviously when something goes up quite fast, we got also quite the fast pullback. After such a strong run, we saw volatility on the one side and some profit taking on the other. And that's normal, especially when a lot of leverage can be involved, which sometimes with these moves it has. So the bigger takeaway for January was another reminder that gold is acting more like just a safe haven right now for people, and it's becoming more a core way to position themselves for a bigger macro picture, especially when the confidence in politics, policy directions, traditional currencies gets questioned actually. All these factors have a substantial impact, and we could see that on the price. So next, I would like to discuss maybe how this affected Bitcoin. So in 2026, Bitcoin had an early strength that then these flows turned quite heavily. So in Bitcoin terms, Bitcoin started the year with a strong impulse, pushing like up to the mid 90s. early January, and then some coin metrics also highlighted that Bitcoin are rallying to around 94K, 95K, with spot ETF flow turning positive. And on January 5, after the outflows of the end of the year, this was apparent. So mid-month, we also saw commentary about Bitcoin pushing toward the high 90,000s. But the second half of January started to feel more like a risk-off month. So I think sentiment shifted. And that's because crypto is extremely sensitive to the marginal demand. And in January, marginal demand weakened substantially. So CoinShares, I think, reported that over 1.7 billion in weekly outflows from digital asset products, which was the largest since mid-November 25, with Bitcoin leading the pack for around 1 billion in outflows for that week. So multiple markets have now persisted, noticed that the ETF outflows are also quite high. And of course, this always reflects in the price. So for January, for Bitcoin, it was basically fundamentals and adoption narrative stay intact, but the liquidity and positioning drove more the price, I would say. So when flows flip negative, then the market reminds everybody that Bitcoin can move fast, basically in both directions. So now in the perspective of how gold and Bitcoin interacted, capital rotations and collateral quality, I would say that you could see a shift from something as tangible like gold, or let's say like from the Bitcoin, it shifted to the more tangible stuff like gold. And when markets were fragile, gold really takes the stage. So in late January, gold was surging while crypto flows turned actually still negative. So I think this is always a good reminder that when it's good time to take some risk-off approach. So to wrap this up, January 26 was a month where gold reminded everybody that where the true macro assets, how it looks like, and Bitcoin reminded everybody that it's still liquidity-driven market, so it still has to mature. So now let's move on to markets, from the markets basically to our work at the Minerales and our Ayni Gold and the concession in Peru. All right, moving on from the markets now to the real world foundation behind the Ayni Gold. Our concession, San Hilario Minerales, from the last month, the main focus has been the gold mine, obviously, and the expansion of it. We're scaling up the throughput and improving also the recovery rate. We've been purchasing the equipment and material needed to increase the volume of sand washing because that directly drives, of course, how much production capacity you're able to achieve. So on the operation side, we're actively upgrading the whole washing line. We're installing additional pumps with higher capacity. We're increasing overall the throughput and mounting new schlussers designed for a better flow and capture, which they can capture basically more fine sediment. So we're now closing to finishing this upgrade cycle because next we will move into the next phase. We're starting the continuous washing under the expanded capacity. So we're preparing the sites for the third and fourth burrata units and beginning the modernization of our finishing and recovering module. For everybody not remembering, the burrata units are these big drums that you can see that are washing the sediment. So to summarize what's already completed, we replaced the old schlussers with metal sluices. So purchased and installed more powerful slurry pumps, upgraded the feed unit with the butaras, and we have started commissioning work now on the recovery module to improve the extraction efficiency. You can see all that also in the videos that we always like to highlight these spots. So for our plans for 2026, looking ahead, and the target this year are, first of all, we aim to bring the third and the fourth butara units online, and then wrap up, of course, the full production capacity on these butaras. Second, we're going to be upgrading the power infrastructure, a very important milestone. The plan is here to connect 320 kilowatts transmission line by April 1st, and we're going to scale that up to 1.2 megawatts by the end of the year. And this matters because the power unlocks a stable operation and supports the higher capacity equipment that we're going to be deploying. So This is also quite unique at a mining operation because traditionally the industry operates with diesel generators, as I've mentioned before. As our mine is also a long-term project with vast capacities, switching to a more sustainable way of electricity production was just basically a next logical step for us. With that approach also, we are pioneering, I would say, and set new standards on how efficient and sustainable way of exploration and production is actually possible. So this is also quite new on doing it that on the ground there. And for that, we have also a new concession acquired, which is very important, Rosemary Uno, which is for us a big update on the regard is that we also expanded our footprint, you could say, in that matter. And Rosemary Uno is going to be the name of the new concession. So this year, the work there is structured more or less 3 steps. First, the project and the engineering work. Second, we will be purchasing and installing the equipment, very important. And according to the plan, the third and last step is the testing and the launch with the trial run, of course, by the end of year, so that we can see the capacities. Basically, our goal for 2026 is to keep expanding the area of active concessions and steadily increase the operation capacities on the ground. Now in our next section, we're going to be moving on to our product. So basically Ayni Gold and the app. A quick note before the updates, we're currently refreshing the 2026 roadmap. So the updated version is already live on the website. So please check that out. And we'll be keep iterating, of course, as we ship and learn everything along the way. So on the technical updates for January, let's highlight some things that we have been actively working on. The first one is we have enhanced the user onboarding flow. Very important because the updated flow is designed to clearly communicate what Ayni Gold is about, how the platform works, and how users can navigate key features basically from the start, from the get-go. These changes aim to reduce the initial friction and improve first-time users' understanding. So the updated onboarding flow has already been released by beginning of February. So please check that out if you haven't registered yet on the platform. So you will see that. As a second point, we added a set of tutorial videos within the platform to guide users through core functionalities and common actions. These tutorials are intended basically to provide an on-demand assistance and reduce the dependency on manual support or some guides that you have to work yourself through. So please take your time, watch the tutorials in order how to use the platform, because as time and functionalities increase, we will be adding more and more to these tutorial videos, so that in order to be able to help everybody on the platform. Now, at last, we have continued, of course, our active development with the withdrawal feature, which is, of course, very highly anticipated. And through January, we have concluded that. We're now doing in the testing in February because it's going to be released by the end of month. The team has been finalizing and already almost finished all the last testing on that. So I'm really looking forward for that feature, because now everybody will be able also to extract their rewards and load them to their own wallet. So it is important that to make clear that it took a bit longer than estimated, that this is all because of the testing, and also we have auditors that needs to be able to verify everything before it's released. So this is also for user safety, of course, because at the end of the day, it's user funds. So what's next for February and beyond? In February, we're going to be expanding our development team because we need additional hands on deck with all the functionalities that we have in our backlog and in our roadmap. So you will be able to see new tutorials in the help section. You will be able to see new guides. You will be able to see new onboarding flows for you and new user journeys. So we will make this much easier for you to be able to stake. As a guiding principle, we focus on reducing the friction for new users, improving the reliability and transparency across the system. This means that, for example, we solved an issue that many users had experienced with VPN. So these are just some small fixes that we're trying to help the users so that they can use the platform. Now let's head over to the community updates. We're really happy to host our very first session called Building in Public episode on X Spaces. This was done 1 week ago. So the recording is available on our X profile. Check that out. And we've already been seeing quite a lot of thoughtful feedback from our community, which helps us also to improve our products and also be able to answer the questions. So we'll definitely continue this series of live events. And we were also planning to bring guests on the show. So in the upcoming episodes, this will be the case. A quick reminder from my side as well, every Monday and Thursday, we publish our analytical market updates on gold and Bitcoin and the broader RWA landscape. So please keep an eye out for that on our socials. And if you want to stay plugged into the narrative and the numbers, follow us please on X. We also share these reports inside our Discord and also the Ayni app section. And one thing I want to emphasize, we're building Ayni to be simpler, more transparent, generally useful. So the fastest way to get there is to listen to the feedback of the community. So with this, we are really trying to do. So please keep sharing your feedback in our socials, in Discord, in X, on YouTube. We read it, we track it, we analyze it, and it directly influences also what we're going to be prioritizing. So on top of that, we're actively preparing major app mechanics like referral program, loyalty programs, as you know from other apps. So the goal is here to reward the active Ayni users and make it easy to share Ayni Gold with friends or your broader audience. So please, if you're not connected yet, make sure to follow us on X and join the Discord, because that's where you get updates first and access the earliest benefits that we're rolling out. To wrap up, now we can conclude to the community questions from the last time. Let's address a few important questions that we've been seeing from the community. The first question has been, what's the difference between licensed gold mining in Peru and illegal mining? Excellent question. And also, how can Minerales basically, the operations be verified and what extraction methods are actually used? So these are two questions which I would like to answer, which also maybe also the methods on how we impact the local ecosystem. So the answer to that is, if you have listened to our audio recording on X also, first, the licensed gold mining in Peru means that you operate under a legal title and in a regulated process. So that includes having the right concession, the right permissions, the reporting requirements, oversight from authorities. This is all required. So of course, for that, you also have to follow environmental rules, labor rules, you pay the required taxes and fees for all of that. Illegal mining, on the opposite, it happens without valid permits, outside of the formal system. It often avoids any real environmental controls completely. So in many regions, it's linked to really serious damage to the environment, like uncontrolled deforestation, polluted water, unsafe working conditions or hazardous working conditions. So it also makes it hard for anyone to track where the gold actually came from. So now to address the second question on how Minerales operations can be verified, we can verify operations in a few really practical ways. And if you want to we want to really emphasize on pushing the transparency here. First, on the documentation. So the licensed mining has all the paper trail, which you can also follow on our website, up to the government website, where all the licensing has to be filed. The concession permits, compliance filings, company records are all verifiable. As a second step, I would say the location proof. We can show where we operate with GPS coordinates, site footage, and consistent timestamped photos, video updates from the mine, which you will be seeing also from myself, because I had the opportunity to visit the mine myself. So there's going to be a lot of footage also from that. And third of all, on the operations reporting, we can provide a summary of production, data, equipment, upgrades. All this process updates is something that we can really make transparent for everybody to be able to see. And of course, there is a third-party verification too. So over time, we can add independent checks and audits, or like external inspections, partner validations. So it's not just trust us or verify it. So everybody will be able to have a real insight into the whole production. The third question was, what extraction methods basically are used and what's the impact on the local ecosystem? So at the high level, our approach is focused on, quite straightforward, on physical separation methods, where the goal is to extract the gold using controlled processes and avoid any unnecessary chemical pollution. That's why also, in more simple terms, we separate the gold material using water flow and gravity-based equipment. And then we recycle and manage the water as much as possible. And we keep the footprint through that also controlled in the active area. So our priorities are quite straightforward on that regard. We try to keep the operations contained. We manage the runoff using proper settling and water handling and restoring areas over time instead of just expanding somewhere uncontrolled like it is with illegal mining. So the real difference is the mindset, I would say, the how you approach the problem. And I would say that licensed mining is accountable and measurable, while the illegal mining is uncontrolled and really unaccountable. So to basically sum it up. So our commitment is quite simple and straightforward. We want to keep making our operations easy to verify, keep improving the transparency with real proof, and make it as sustainable as possible. Yes, so now let's head to the second question. How does Minerales activity affect the local community? Also an excellent question. Minerales activity, of course, has an effect on the local community in a few direct and indirect ways, so we can break them down. First, almost for obvious, is the job creation of the mining, which creates employment on site. It also supports the surrounding services like transportation, food, maintenance, security, and basic logistics. So the goal is that meaningful part of spending stays in the local area and not only in the capital, for example. So as a second paradigm, I would say that we are trying to emphasize on the skills of the workers and the stability. So when the operations are structured and legal people can work in a more predictable environment with a really clear process and better safety standards than informal mining, then it is a big benefit for them. So over time, this means that they can provide proper training to our employees. We can provide a better routine. We can provide a more stable environment and also income for them. As a third point throughout our activity, we support direct and indirect local businesses, as I already said. So the local suppliers, the local contractors, nearby shops that we see that are on demand and are quite active around our mine. So I think this is important because it can strengthen the economic output of the specific area. Yes, so I hope that this answers the question. The last question is platform architecture and how user funds are actually stored. Excellent question, and this is also a very important topic because we have to explain what the difference between the in-app smart wallet and an external self-custody wallet is. So I would like to explain that how the funds are actually stored on the platform and what the difference between the in-app smart wallet and the external wallet is. So first, I would say the way you can view it, a user's funds are not stored in our database or on any regard of our wallet in whatsoever. Funds are live on the blockchain in wallets that are controlled by cryptographic keys. And what matters is who controls the keys and who can authorize the transactions. So now in the app, the smart wallet, also called virtual wallet in our case, is a self-custody wallet experience inside the app. And this is powered by Turnkey, which we have partnered with. This solution is very straightforward. The idea is quite simple. You get the usability of a normal app login, but you still keep control of your wallet. How is that working? Turnkey is basically using a secure key management so that when signing keys are generated and stored in the hardened infrastructure that they provide, and the transactions can only be signed when you approve it inside the app with your confirmation code, which you receive via OTP, which means by email, etc. So Ayni Gold cannot just take your keys or move your funds. And this is very important because we don't hold custody of any user's funds. There is no admin button, so that lets us withdraw any money or we can access in any way. What this also means is that you stay the owner and every transfer requires the user's authorization. And this is very important. In both cases, the virtual wallet and the external wallet, such as MetaMask, Trust Wallet, etc., are always under your control. So what's the difference basically in the practice? In the app, when you use the virtual wallet, it is about the convenience and onboarding. You can start very quickly without dealing with seed phrases on day one, and you still get the wallet that you control through your account via your email. The external wallet on the other side is basically bring your own wallet option. So you can manage everything yourself, including the backups and the recovery, and you can connect it only when it's needed. One thing that is important on that point, access and recovery. With external wallets, if you lose your seed phrase, nobody can really help you. With the in-app smart wallet setup, you still need to ensure that you always keep access to your email because this is your access key to your wallet. Side note on this, that's also why we suggest to enable two-factor authentication in the app to ensure maximum security in case your email should be compromised. So always do that. Please pay attention to this. Now, before we close, just a quick reminder. We publish these updates every month, and if you want to stay in the loop, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss the next episode. Please share your thoughts and questions in the comments. We read them, and it helps us always to know what the community basically expects of us. Thank you for tuning in, and see you in the next episode. Have a good day. Goodbye.